Okay, 3, 2, 1, roll! Hi folks, in today's video I'm going to be turning this big, echoey, bare, plastered room into a nice bright studio for Joe, so stick around and we'll make a start. Right, so you've actually missed out on all the laborious carting of stuff out of this place into the workshop. I've moved everything out, given it a good clear down and done a bit of prep work on the plaster. The end game has always been though to make this just a nice, versatile, bright studio space for Joe's business and also some of my photography work. So we're going to get started. First thing I've done is prepped up the walls. There was a bit of filling to do, just where some of the screws have popped. Remember, this is a garage conversion, internally insulated, so occasionally when there's any movement in those timbers, because we've got insulation between the roofing timbers and our plasterboard, the screws can pop through the plaster. It's a bit of a pain. It tends to only happen around the outside, and therefore we could just switch to having some coving in here. But for now, I've just done some filling in the hope that that solves most of it. Now I'm going to be spraying in here. It makes entire sense because we've just got this big open space. Everything's going to be white in here, and I've only got one window, one door. Took a couple of minutes to get all that masked up, so not really much prep work, and the age-old argument of roller versus spray. In this case, I think spraying's winning. Behind me you can make out the split floor level. I'm going to build some stairs down into this room, but I'll do that afterwards. Now we need to get set up. I'm trying to use that paint I've already got. I've got 2 or 3 tubs of contract matte and also some of this screw fix bare plaster white paint. I think there's about half in there. This stuff's really good. It's actually, I normally use Dulux Super Matte, the Dulux Trade Super Matte. That's a great paint, really breathable, great on new plaster, but you've got to water it down quite a bit. This stuff, from using it in the other room, seems just as good, to be honest. So I'm going to go with that and use up all the gear we've got before we go and buy anything else. apart from a few splatters and splutters because it's an older paint and it's probably got a few lumps and bumps in it, I've cleared them out on the floor, that's why there's a few blobs. You just spin the nozzle, clear it, and then you can carry on. So I'm on to the second tub, and I've just got this one wall to do. Well, the camera survived the overspray. It really isn't that bad. This one doesn't seem to have much fallout from when you're spraying, whether it's overhead or not. The grey coat that I've got, I end up with freckles everywhere. More freckles than normal. Anyway, that is the mist coat done. It's looking alright. I tell you what, there's nothing better than flat white matte paint to make things look better. I'm not sure there's going to be much filling and prep to do. There's a few little bits that are now standing out, but I can get those filled, sanded, and probably even get a first final coat on tonight. I went a little bit lighter on the ceiling. Should have probably gone with full power on that because the walls have come out just a little bit more even. Right, we are 2 hours-ish on, and things are drying pretty nicely. I reckon we are a little bit early for the second coat. It just feels a little bit cold, it's touch dry. But that's kind of because I put a decent amount on. So it's probably a bit thicker than you might get with a light mist coat if you're rolling it on. But now in order to give our walls a little bit longer to dry, I'm just going to go around and do a couple of little tiny little cracks and touch-ups with the filler. That'll get, you know, another half an hour. Should just be okay to then give it a light rub back and then paint it all. I've intentionally picked out a couple of bits here just where there were screw pops, and we can get them filled. Right, I think we're just about there. That little bit of filler I've put in here and there is dry enough, and I really only put in a tiny amount anyway. I think we're just going to go straight on. Next coat, we're all primed up. I'm just going super cheap contract matte. Now really, I'm happy with that because we're just constantly going to be doing touch-ups. We're going to be hanging stuff on the wall. Joe will be using props in here. We've got photo backgrounds. So the whole idea, we're just going with super simple white, is that we can just quickly touch up if needed, either with a roller or just with the little spray. Well, it's the next day, it's actually the next evening, and I'm at the point now where I need to get the final coat on. It's looking almost perfect already. Well, not perfect, but good enough already. But I just think I might regret. There's a couple of patches which halfway through the day I could just see needed one more coat. But really, it's looking pretty good in here. Actually feeling a little bit queasy in here. Like, it's so flat and all one colour that you lose all sort of perspective. Not much to sort out, to be honest. I'll tell you what though, that tape looks like it's... I bet we've got some bare plaster under there. To make sure we hit that plaster. Right, while I set up on this evening's session, thought I'd go into a few of the details of the sprayer. Some of you might not have come across the channel before, you might not have seen the previous videos when I was using this, so I thought I'd give you the lowdown. So first up, why am I spraying, not rolling and brushing? Efficiency, time, and enjoyment, to be honest. It's quite fun doing the spraying. Not so much when you're rolling just repetitive, huge areas like this. This room in particular is just really well suited to spraying. We've got 2 bits to mask off, everything's white. You know, it's a mist coat and then 2 coats, it just makes sense. If you're doing lots of small areas, like in the previous video when I was doing the bedrooms, it was a bit overkill unless you were just doing the mist coat in a couple of rooms all in one hit, or ceilings. It's probably a bit overkill to set this up for a small bedroom of emulsion for walls. I've got the smaller grey coat unit, but that's going into other territories. So from me as a DIYer, giving you a bit of a lowdown, this is an airless sprayer. That basically means that rather than an HVLP sprayer, some of those are a little bit cheaper to buy, what that does is it's basically blowing a large volume of air, picking up the air, picking up the paint as it leaves the nozzle and spraying it onto the wall. That means, one, you've got to thin down your paint normally, which has its own issues, but you can still do that, and we've done it in the past and it works fine. It's less controllable with the budget models. The difference with this, with an airless, is it's just purely pressurizing the paint. Normally as it comes, you don't have to thin it down. It's pressurizing that paint and then atomizing it as it leaves the tip. And that's kind of the simple point of view. I mean, so this is great for covering large areas, getting large amounts of paint through and up on the wall. I'm using a little extension, which is really handy on tall ceilings like this, and just because you really want to keep nice and 90 degrees sort of perpendicular to the wall or ceiling without kind of doing this at the top and bottom. So that's what that allows for. This is just a simple budget extension off Amazon. The only thing you just need to be careful of is I don't have a valve at the end of this, so what that means is this bit here is under pressure. When you release the trigger, you then sometimes get the last bit of paint that's in here squirt out. So I always need to make sure that I finish off the wall or ceiling, and I'm in this case finishing onto the floor, or in the case of where you've got some masking paper or plastic up, you can just finish on there. So that's the only thing to be conscious of, but when you start up, it's normally fine, you can start anywhere. Apologies if the LED light is flickering on here, it probably is. I'm just using the GoPro because everything gets covered in a fine layer of dust and I don't really fancy bringing the normal camera in here. So I've probably still got a bunch of water in here left from yesterday. So I'm going to get rid of that, clear all that through, then we'll prime the hoses with the paint and then we're going to start spraying. So the machine is now primed, we've got paint going up, pick up, back down the other hose. And now I'm going to just spray into our bucket until we got rid of all the water in here and we're down to paint. Right, that's it, we're on to the good stuff now. Loads of people asking questions last night on Instagram about the process. Hopefully I'm covering it in this. There's not much to watch, a bit like watching paint dry, I guess. But really, there is a time and a place for spraying, and the better you get at your prep and your masking, it really is very comparable to painting with a roller. Yes, there's a little bit to argue. If you've got a already decorated room, you've got carpet down and that sort of stuff, there's probably a fair bit of work in the prep, but you win that back with the actual decorating time. So yeah, it's just a decision to make. But if you've got a big renovation going on and you can group walls and ceilings and mist coats together, it's an absolute no-brainer, and the finish you get is far superior. Until you've seen it, you're probably doubting it, but when you see how flawless the finish is with spraying, it's just, it is way better. The only problem is if you scuff the wall, touch-ups are harder, so you've got to either, on your final spray coat, have someone or yourself roll over it just to finish, to just pick it up a little bit so you've got a bit of texture on the wall. That means you can come back in, touch it up with a small roller, or alternatively, if you've got a small sprayer, which we've got, that little grey coat, it means you can just bung half a litre of paint in there, zip over any touch-ups, and you know it's going to blend in. You wouldn't want to set this up just because you mark the wall with a sofa. As he spills a bucket of water all over the floor. Sorry girls. Use your swimming towels. Now I've got a paint leak. Didn't tighten him up, did I? Alright, should we try again? Okay, well, I'm going to leave it where it is because last night the sprayer started playing up and it was just a bit of a pain. I think there was a block on the inlet, so I just about managed to get the ceiling done and then I gave up. The walls I'm happy with. Peel this back. This window was a second-hand window off eBay, so it needs to do clean. But hopefully get a bit of natural light in here, we'll feel how well things have turned out. Looks alright to me. I've seen better reveals skimmed. But for my basic plastering, that's alright for in here. Spider? Get out of here. Pretty pleased with that. Looks pretty good. It's also quite helpful, it's north facing, so there's no direct sunlight. So any little imperfections don't show up. But let's sort the light out now. So as many of you will know, there is always plenty going on here, more than we should have going on at once. And in that fashion, we decided to do the door restoration projects simultaneously. So whilst we had that big empty room, it made sense to make the most efficient use of that space to do all of the doors all at once. It was a pretty full-on project. It took about 3 or 4 full days, and I'll be showing that in a series of videos very shortly. It turned out great, and if you've been following along on Instagram and Facebook, you would have seen the whole process. So we're going to be taking a pause from the studio, jumping into a door project, and then we'll come back to the studio to revisit the flooring, the skirting board, some steps, and then getting Joe moved in. But there we go. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.